Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Selena from Wholeness Campaign, and today I want to share with you Google's top asked questions when it comes to mold and how it affects your health from a truly holistic perspective. I made one video on mold and realized that it was super long, so I'm actually cutting it up into two videos. This is going to be part one of a two-part series on how to manage mold in your home, really from a holistic perspective. So this video is going to be all of Google's top asked questions, but you can look forward to in my next video hearing all about the most effective and budget conscious remediation tips for your home, as well as how to manage detoxing from mold toxicity. So my hope here is to really answer some of these complicated questions that the internet is asking from a holistic perspective, especially one that comes about it from a more emotional health, mental health, mental sanity standpoint. I'm hoping to provide a lot of peace instead of what the internet has mostly offered, which is a lot of fear, but also give you some of my best tips here, particularly if you are sensitive to mold. Let's jump into the first half of this video. Right now, if you aren't aware, there is a huge field of mold and mold toxicity, and lots of people on the internet who are talking about how bad mold is for your health and how it can have these long-term toxic consequences. But there is so much fear in that area. And I want to just come in and debunk some of those fears, some of the myths, because I think some people manage mold in their house incorrectly just because they found something really quick and easy on the internet. But yet not a lot of people actually take the time to research what mold actually is, how to effectively remediate it, and how to deal with the long-term consequences of mold and mold toxins in your body in a healthy and non-stressful way. I have honestly had to unfollow some of the mold accounts on Instagram because it can become so toxic for my mental health to think about, is there mold on this? Is there mold on that? Is there mold on this? So I want to take you through Google's top asked questions when it comes to mold and all the research that I've done. I'm going to give you my best responses. Okay, so Google's first question is, what is mold? And Google basically defined it as an often fuzzy surface growth of fungus, especially on damp or decaying matter. So the reality is mold is actually a natural part of the decomposition process of anything. That is why when moisture hits something, that is basically telling that object that it's getting ready to decompose, because that's what happens in nature. The problem happens when that starts to happen indoors, because it actually will create these harmful byproducts that typically nature would be able to manage on its own with all the other microbial species to help compensate for it. But indoor air quality ends up really damaged by it for a number of reasons, partially because it doesn't have that same microbial makeup as the outdoors, but also because there are a lot of toxic things in our indoor air that combine with mold and produce even more harmful toxic byproducts, which is probably not an exciting thing to talk about, but it's the truth. Okay, Google's next question was, what does mold smell like? And the crazy thing about mold is sometimes it has a smell, sometimes it has an odor, but actually there's sometimes where it doesn't have an odor at all. Traditionally, people will say, oh, that doesn't smell moldy, that smells musty. But the reality is musty and moldy are the exact same thing. If you're smelling a musty odor, that's actually an indication of mold. This is why when you go to thrift stores and it smells like, your grandma's basement, the reason for that is because you've got people's stuff coming from a host of different locations with their own potentially water damaged issues, and you're putting them in one location. Mold can spread like that. And so that's why thrift stores tend to kind of smell like that, like musty, old smell. But the thing is, you can't actually be fooled here, because as much as mold can appear like, the green fungus that's growing on a tree, or it can actually be black in like a bathroom, like if you've seen on the grout, sometimes mold can also actually be invisible to the naked eye. So it has become very popular for even new builds, new houses under construction, to have high levels of mold, because the construction practices today don't typically bear in mind all of the different facets of being mold safe, mold conscious. You often see construction workers working on wood that's been out in the rain and then putting it right into an encapsulated space, which is basically asking for problems. So these clean, chic, new houses, as much as it might feel like you don't have mold because it doesn't have visible mold, a lot of the times that mold can be hidden and people can be experiencing the mold toxicity symptoms without even showing any visible signs in their home. So that was another question that Google had, was what are the signs of mold toxicity? And the funny thing about this is that the signs of mold toxicity are also the signs of every other form of toxicity. And so I don't tend to try to decode and stress about, oh, is this mold or is this heavy metals or is this? Like when you come at it from a GAPS perspective, we're treating most of it the same way. You're going to repair your microbiome and focus on your detox pathways and getting toxins out of your body safely and effectively. So in this sense, I don't really feel like you need to go and like analyzing your body and seeing if is this like a mold sign. But if you are exhibiting several of these and you've hit walls in your healing, this might be a helpful list to kind of scan your life and see, oh, maybe if I'm exhibiting these symptoms, some people run and get lots really expensive blood work tests to find out if there's mold in their system, but maybe just realizing that you have like several of these symptoms and you've been doing all the things, maybe I have mold in my house and maybe we can address that as a way of supporting your health. So these are the top signs of mold toxicity in your body. That would be brain fog and memory loss, dizziness, vertigo, ear infections, headaches and migraines, itchy, red, and watery eyes, joint numbness, pain, or tingling, a persistent cough, runny nose, and sinus problems. Interestingly enough, I was in a moldy building when I was in school growing up, and probably like 30 to 50%, maybe that's extreme, maybe 30 to 40% of my class ended up with some form of respiratory illness like asthma. It was ridiculous. We had so many people with inhalers at school. I actually felt like every other classmate had inhalers, but it really just goes to say that if you're spending long periods of time in moldy exposed buildings, it can have a very big effect on your respiratory system, especially if you're young and kids. So that's just something I've experienced and I can personally attest to. Another question Google asked was, how harmful is mold to humans? And I would say it is very harmful. There are also other things that are harmful. And so I think some people can become very fixated on mold as the root of all of their problems. And while yes, I do agree, like growing up in mold, I know people who've grown up in mold and they have serious health issues that they're still working out, and they have a lot of detoxification that they need to do. It can cause these issues, but I think if you're conscious of it and you have some tools in your tool belt of how to manage mold in a home, you can also heal from it very effectively. And so that's something that Google won't tell you. Another question was, can mold behind your walls make you sick? And the answer to that is yes. There's a lot of reasons for that, but basically your HVAC system is going to circulate air from all around your house, even from behind walls. So like I said, with the building materials, it's very common. You'll see where, you're outside, if you're in a rainy area while the house is being built, it rains, there's no real way to let it fully dry out before the construction workers just to continue. And that's really how it happens, is mold gets on the wood that ends up behind the walls and then can ultimately get into like the system of your house and stuff like that. If you actually walk into Home Depot as well, I've done this several times, there's actually moldy wood for sale. And they won't tell you that this is moldy wood, but if you see like large black splotches on any of the wood that you're buying from Home Depot, or really any, home repair place, that is mold. And that can happen in the transportation process. If it got wet at any point, all you need is moisture and one mold spore to start feeding and multiplying to create mold on some kind of like building material. Especially wood is food for mold to grow on. So the next question was, what creates mold in a house? And I just kind of talked about that, but it's essentially the combination of moisture and mold spores. And mold spores are pretty much everywhere. It's not really something that you can fully avoid because mold spores can literally get on your clothing if you're walking outside. So that's, in that sense, you don't really stress about, oh, is there any singular mold spore in my house? More so, you're wanting to look at the water damaged areas in your home, because that's going to be a breeding pot for those spores to land on, multiply, and start kind of creating this like fungi environment that can produce toxic byproducts for the air. So what really creates mold issues in a house is chronic areas of moisture. That even would include issues like humidity being too high in a basement, or bathroom not having proper ventilation for when you're showering and hot showers. Those types of things can contribute to mold. So if you got any value out of this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. It is my passion to walk alongside people as they heal and grow. It inspires me and hopefully brings encouragement to you. Thanks for watching.